two rules in public speaking. Number one is you don't follow children, and number two is you don't follow animals, right? Cute little puppy dogs and kitty cats and things like that. I have a third rule, and I will live by this. And I was like, do not follow Shannon Grove, because there's nothing I can add to what she did. Maybe a couple of things. Shannon did a great job. Tim's kind of at an advantage on the assembly floor because he kind of sits in the back on the side. And I sit in the front in the middle. So I don't get to see what's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on behind me all the time that he's starting and Shannon's starting that I don't get to see because I'm, paying attention to what I'm supposed to be paying attention to. And so so every once in a while I go in the back and I just stand in the back of the floor and just watch what's happening, and I watch these two operate on the floor and protect liberty and freedoms and your pocketbooks. And there's a saying that I like, and I particularly like the part-time legislature, because when the legislature is not in session, your freedoms and your pocketbook are safe. So when the legislators are in town, you should be worried. So a couple of things just about my background. Shannon mentioned that previously I've been a pastor. I was in charge of marriage ministries at a fairly large church in San Diego County, and then I also managed a ministry team that traveled around the country working in public elementary schools. But I also owned a commercial real estate firm that we started in '05 that specialized in representing churches. We actually had some clients up here in the Sacramento area. And then our firm fully participated in the recession of 2008. So we had to close in 2009, about the same time that I was running for this office. And Tim mentioned BMW motorcycles. I worked on the sales floor at a BMW dealership, motorcycle dealership, while I was running for office. So I worked full time. I was on the city council as vice mayor in my hometown while I ran for office. And we're a trifecta tonight of three people that did not have any desire to come to Sacramento. But factors in our life, God made things happen, circumstances to where I didn't have a choice. I was on the city council of a city that's very prosperous, very successful, had a 29% budget reserve. All of our services were taken care of. All of our employees were happy. Our firefighters were paid. We contracted police with the sheriff's department, everything. We were moving in a prosperity way. I mean, we were moving in a positive direction. And every year when we went to do our budget, there was some new crazy thing coming out of Sacramento that was either taking money from the city or leaving more money, keeping more money from coming. It was every year when it was time to balance our budget. The reason we were having budget problems was because of things coming out of that building. Ideas, bad ideas, coming out of that Capitol building. And I just finally got to the point where I couldn't take any more and had to throw my ring in the hat and run. And I was also one of those ones that said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get there. And I certainly hope you'll reveal it at some point in time. And on that first night, the dinner that Tim's talking to, I met Tim and Shannon. We actually have a good group of Republican freshmen. There's 11 of us. One of us is gone right now, fighting in Afghanistan to protect our freedoms there. And we've just got a good group of folks. Us three times three. So, and we're real excited about it. One of the things I want to talk about is, how are we going to reform California and make a difference long term? Many of you have asked me tonight about the budget, and we're going to work on a budget. I predict that we'll have a budget by June 15th. I'm not going to tell you how high a quality of a budget we're going to have, but we'll have a budget. Because we don't have a part-time legislature, most of the folks in that building have to get their paycheck. So they're going to pass a budget by June 15th. And it may or may not have Republican support. So that's why I can tell you, I can't tell you the quality of that budget that's going to come out in the next week or so. But we're asked all the time, what would it take for you, I'm talking to me, and Tim's had the question, Shannon's had the question, what would it take for you to vote for taxes to go on the ballot to, you know, so that we have 54 votes for a budget. And in January, I started thinking about that question. You know, I got some ideas that I think are worth putting taxes on the ballot to let the voters decide whether they want to increase taxes or not. I know how they're going to vote. I am very confident how the voters are going to vote. But let's see, if we could reform CEQA, if we could get paycheck protection, if we could get a spending cap, if we could get, you know, we listed off, what did we have, like 10 ideas in caucus that maybe, I mean, none of us committed to it, but it was a conversation. We were just having a conversation that we would talk about these things. And then I started thinking about it. We started kind of floating these ideas. You know, the governor would come into our caucus lunches, and he's very amiable, and he was very diligent for the first 6 weeks to come in every other week. We saw him 3 times in 6 weeks. And from the people that have been there before, they never saw Schwarzenegger. And he was Republican. Brown would come in, he'd sit down, he'd get a cup of coffee, he'd be very comfortable with us. He'd talk to us at the table face to face. And we'd say, well, Governor, what about this? Oh, I probably can't do that. Well, Governor, what about this idea? I'll talk to my staff and get back to you. Governor, what are we thinking about this? I don't know. And then one day I just had this crazy idea. Governor, how about just giving employees of the state the freedom to choose whether they want their dues to go to political action or not go to political action? Oh, I can't do that. You're asking me to defund my army. I can't do that. Well, that day, I knew that we weren't getting 54 on the budget. Now, with mine being one of those two. And then I started thinking about past budget deals. And you all know that we've been down this road every year for the last forever, right? Last year there was a budget impasse for 100 days, 115 of every day. The year before that, there was a budget impasse. The year before that, there was a budget impasse. The year before that, there was a budget impasse. What happens every single year? Enough Republicans go up on taxes to vote for a budget. And every year, they say, the 2 or 3 of them that do it, well, we got this reform, or we got that reform, or this good thing happened, or that good thing happened. Right? Everybody with me on that? That's what happens, right? That's the normal process. And I started evaluating this situation, how this budget comes to be. Because I come from a city, we balanced our budget every year. We did it on a 5-0 vote. There's 5 council members. We passed the budget, 5-0. Every year it's balanced. We have a 29% reserve. Everybody's moving in a positive direction. Why is the state so screwed up? And so I started about, okay, can anybody name those people that went up on taxes last year, the year before that?
Roger Nealo.
Okay. Well, yeah, that was a little impression. You all ran his district.
Right.
Okay. In other parts of the state, people don't know the answer to this question.
Maldonado.
Right, Maldonado. So, okay, does anybody remember the reforms that they fought for and got in exchange?
Top 14.
In right.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be arguments over that.
But there's a constitution too stupid to be called a republic.
Right. So we can sometimes remember who the players were. Almost never does anybody remember what the budget deal was that they got. Okay, so now even if you could remember the players and the budget deals that they got, everything that was in the budget deal last year was undone this year. Everything that was in the budget deal 2 years ago was undone last year. Everything that was in the budget deal 3 years ago was undone 2 years ago. Now I'm coming this as a businessman. I'm used to making deals. I'm used to putting deals together that both sides come together, they negotiate, and they leave the table. You know, the art in negotiation, if both parties leave the table ticked off, it was probably a pretty good deal. You know what I mean? If each party think they gave up too much and didn't get enough, if they both say that, it was probably a pretty good deal. Well, I'm looking at this going, there's no such thing as a good deal. Because no matter what we agree to this year, within 6 months it's going to be undone. And so that's why, you know, so far the Republicans have held strong and there's no budget deal. because Tim and Shannon and the rest of the freshmen have been able to come in there and remind the people that have been there forever, hey, everything you negotiated last year was already been undone. Why makes you think it's going to be different this year? So then Prop 25 passes in November, and I'll admit it, I'm one of the few Republicans in the state that supported Prop 25, and here's why. Until you see liberalism completely unchecked, and you see what they want to do to your freedoms and your pocketbook, there's not a corrective behavior from the voters. And we saw that in 2008 to 2010 in Congress, when we had a completely out of control Congress and a completely out of control president. In 2010, the voters rebelled, and now we have a majority Republicans, and a lot of those are Tea Party candidates that are going to hold the line on spending, they're going to hold the line on taxes in Congress. And the reason we got that corrective behavior in 2012 is because we saw from 08 to 10 what that was. Well, folks, in California, we're seeing that behavior between 2010 and 2012. And the action plan, to add on to what Shannon mentioned, is not only do you watch their bills on the social stuff that they're passing and the regulations, but watch the bills on the spending. And watch where their priority is on the spending. And right now, it's not on education and it's not on public safety. They're holding those two functions of government, which in state government is our two top priority functions of state government. What you pay state taxes for is for public safety and education. And they maybe throw in some infrastructure and some other stuff that are top priorities for state government. They're funding all of their environmental stuff that Shannon talked about, all their social engineering stuff first, and holding education and public safety hostage to the voters because they think voters are too stupid to see through it. I argue voters are not too stupid to see through it, and they're finally catching on.
Can you refresh us on 25?
Prop 25, I'm sorry. Prop 25 is the ballot initiative that allowed the majority to approve a budget.
To what?
To approve a budget.
Right.
The majority to approve a budget. Now the reason I'll give the full disclosure, the reason I supported Prop 25 is I believe in founding principles of our country. The founding fathers set it up, the majority rules. And we see that in Congress, when one party or another gets out of control, there's corrective behavior. In California, we've never seen the corrective behavior from the voters because we've never been able to see one philosophy out of control, unchecked, like we're seeing now. And then I also support, because Prop 26 was on the ballot, which maintains the 2/3 tax increase.